Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages as they arrive. And it's time to see what is making the headlines with the consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and the associate editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire. Lovely to see you guys. We'll be speaking to them in a moment.
See you, Jane.
They'll be with us all the way through until midnight nearly. So let's see what is on the front of some of those papers. And referencing the Prime Minister's presence at the climate summit, the Metro calls his refusal to apologise amid allegations of Tory sleaze a bit of a cop-out. The Daily Telegraph leads with the Duchess of Sussex reportedly apologising for unintentionally not mentioning her aide's contact with authors. That is also the lead on the front of the Daily Express. Hundreds of companies set up during the government's furlough scheme are now under investigation for potential fraud, according to The Times. The Financial Times has a story concerning the US Consumer Price Index, which the paper says is growing at its fastest rate for 30 years. And on a lighter note, the Daily Star says the UK is becoming a nation of cocktail drinkers. We'll be getting their favourite cocktails by the end of the show, I'm sure. We're joined tonight by Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. Lovely to see both of you guys. To cocktails later, but first of all, to what's happening in Parliament and the Prime Minister's journey up to Glasgow. The Metro have gone with a bit of a cop-out. And The Guardian too have also targeted Geoffrey Cox. Andrew, the Prime Minister doesn't think he's got anything to apologise about, does he?
Well, the Prime Minister just flatly refuses to apologise. I think it would have been just easier if he'd gone to the debate, which was held on Monday in the Commons, instead of skulking around in a hospital in Northumberland. He could have flown back. He could easily have been there. Instead, he sent the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Steve Barclay, into bat for him. I think Steve Barclay did very well. He talked about mistakes the government had made. But earlier, the Education Secretary, Nadeem Zahawi, at the weekend said he used the word sorry. So it seems to be a hard word for the Prime Minister to utter. The fact is, the whole shambles over Owen Paterson, the former Cabinet Minister, and the Standards Committee report, which said he should be suspended from the Commons for 30 days, was incredibly badly handled by Boris Johnson and the government, forcing MPs to vote for something they didn't want. He should have apologised over that, in my view. But he has said, without naming Geoffrey Cox, that MPs who break the rules should be punished. And I suspect Geoffrey Cox, Sir Geoffrey, of course, mustn't do the old man down. The former Attorney General is in hot water, not just because how much money he's been making and the fact he's missed Commons votes while he's been lining his pocket, but because he clearly used his House of Commons office doing legal work for which he was being paid a king's ransom. That's simply against the rules, whatever he says in his statement today. And why didn't he allow anyone to question him about the statement? He put a statement on his website. We still don't know where he is, Jane. Is he still in the British Virgin Islands earning even more money as a lawyer, or is he on holiday? But he doesn't appear to be at home, and we're told he's abroad.
Kevin, I mean, obviously it is fairly easy for the Labour Party to throw stones at the government on this one, but is it not important that MPs have got experience of life outside of politics? We don't want all of our politicians to be career politicians, do we?
Jane, it's not just Labour throwing stones at the government. It's all the other political parties, Liberal Democrats, Greens, Plaid Cymru, SNP. But it's also a lot of Tory MPs are throwing stones at their own leadership and their own party over the handling of this, because it's a disaster. It's made in Downing Street, because Owen Paterson could have taken his punishment, had his 30-day suspension, and it would have been over. Instead, the Prime Minister was engulfed in a crisis because he tried to change the rules to save one of his own, and then got this ferocious public backlash. Now, you want MPs to have experience of life, absolutely, but does that mean that a significant minority of them, that experience, is earning rather large fortunes they probably wouldn't get if they were out in the public, on the jobs market, in the labour market, and they weren't MPs? Is that what you really want? Don't they then begin to lose touch? If you want more MPs in touch with the public, we probably want more taxi drivers, bus drivers, industrial workers, carers. That's probably who we want, rather than people who can go into Parliament and then use their position and contacts to get juicy contracts.
We do
So
have,
no,
we do have
I mean,
the sons and daughters of a lot of those people in politics, don't we, at the moment? But as you say, not people who are doing it as an extra job. Andrew, the Guardian and the Times too have gone with Geoffrey Cox, but in terms of the sums, the Guardian is saying he made £6 million from his second job while he's been an MP. I mean, that's an astonishing sum, isn't it?
Yeah, look, he's clearly a brilliant lawyer, and clearly a lot better than Keir Starmer, who was also earning money as an MP, as a lawyer working outside. He made just over 100,000, I think. Geoffrey Cox, in 10, 15 years, has made £6 million. When does he find the time to be an MP? And why does he bother being an MP? Because it's frankly small change, £81,000 a year. It is staggering. He's clearly got. He will no doubt, I think, go down in history as the most well-paid MP outside of the Commons in history, I would think. I don't think even Theresa May is doing pretty well, actually. She's up to 1.6 million, and she's only been out of number 10 for a few years. But she's not doing that as a lawyer in lengthy court cases. She's making speeches on the international lecture circuit, and bizarrely, people want to pay a lot of money to hear her speak. I wouldn't.
But a lot of politics, I mean, we know that Tony Blair has also made a lot of money since he's, left. It's not an unusual thing for a leader to make money, but it is perhaps unusual to make £6 million while you're actually in the job, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, well, if you're making £6 million as a lawyer, you've got to think, isn't that his main job? And being an MP is his second job, his part-time job, his hobby. Is he a brilliant lawyer, or is he just a very high-charging, lucrative lawyer because of the jobs he'll take? Prepared to go off to the British Virgin Islands, a pretty squalid tax haven in the Caribbean, and work there and then do other jobs. How much could an MP earn? How much? It's a debate we're going to have now because of Geoffrey Cox. Because if rules come in, it may be, well, you can ply your trade. You can't do something you wouldn't have normally had any expertise in. You only wanted because you're an MP. You've got to think, well, he's plying his trade, but that amount of money, people in Torridge and West Devon must think he's just got a lifestyle that has no connection to most of them, and this is where there's a problem on that. It will stick in people's throats, particularly when taxes are going up, prices are going up, and living standards are going to be squeezed. That's why sleaze matters. If the economy was absolutely booming, people might think less of it. But when they can see they're going to be told to tighten their belts by the Chancellor, they're going to resent some MPs, and it's only some Tory MPs in particular, seem to be living the life of Riley and earning a fortune.
Another story,
Andrew,
Andrew.
the irony is,
yeah,
there's an irony here as well, because I've been looking at Geoffrey Cox's majority in his constituency down there in Devon. It's been going up at every election, and at the last election, he got over 60% of the vote. So maybe he's just, he's hardly ever there because he seems to be spending so much time out of the country working. But it's a pretty solid, safe seat. Although I have to say, if in any way he was forced out over any of this, the Tory party would not want a by-election to be fought on the issue of sleaze. But I don't think it will come to that. I suspect what we're going to hear from Sir Geoffrey Cox at some point is, old boy, I think I've decided to stand down at the next election and to spend more time with my legal briefs.
Well, we shall see. Let's move on to another story.
You can see how it'll play out.
I know, we can talk about this all night. We can talk about it more about after 11. But another story that is going to be raising some red faces in the House of Commons. It's on the front of the Times. It's also on the front of the Telegraph as well. And this is about some MPs who went out to Gibraltar. Kevin, they got slightly over-refreshed on the journey.
Yeah, a rather nice way of putting it. The allegation is 3 of the 15 MPs on a trip, one Labour, a female woman who's not named, 2 SNP men who are named, although it's disputed by the SNP, are said, as you say, to have been over-refreshed and to have become difficult. The female Labour MP is said to have been so incapacitated she actually couldn't go meet the troops when she was due to. The 2 SNP MPs are alleged to have been difficult with customs and testing staff. It does not reflect well on MPs. Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, is said to be writing to the parties to complain. Now, of course, we haven't got the full versions of it, but I'm sure the Times and the Telegraph will have had their lawyers all over those stories before they ran them. They're written pretty carefully, but it doesn't sound as if it was the finest days for those three MPs.
Certainly doesn't.
I think the Telegraph has actually named the woman Labour MP. I'm not going to do that because the Times haven't. But apparently she was so, shall we say, well refreshed, as Jayne put it. She had to be escorted off the plane in a wheelchair because she was incapable of walking the journey into the immigration. So I imagine she's had a hell of a hangover, and she was apparently ordered by the Labour whips to return home sooner from Gibraltar. And I imagine she's now going to have a difficult time with the party managers.
Jayne, I have no information on this story, but I know if we were doing that at the Mirror, we would be checking her medical records and whether she was on some sort of medication, and it could have been something else or reaction to a drink. I just say that in the interest of fairness, but I don't have any info on it.
I think that's fair enough. A story we didn't quite get to in part one, and this is about the COP conference. It looks like the US and China have reached a tentative deal. Andrew, I mean, is this really progress?
Yeah, it is. Because look, they are the two biggest polluters in the world. The president didn't go to the summit. He hasn't left China since COVID struck. Perhaps he's feeling too guilty in case it was his wretched laboratories which spread the pandemic in the first place. But the Chinese, there's going to be a press conference tomorrow. There's going to be some joint announcement on reducing methane, which is a very important part of the battle against climate change. So that's a big, significant step. And I think we're going to see in the last 48 hours of COVID, or the last 24 hours, Jayne, frantic behind the scenes arm twisting and negotiating, because the government has produced a 7-page draft, which has got quite a lot of got a lot of woolly statements, but very little specifics. So if there's a breakthrough with China and America, that's pretty big.
Kevin, let's move on to the story about Meghan and the Telegraph, and it's also in a couple of the others as well. She has now admitted that she misled the court when this is to do with the libel action and to do with whether or not she authorised a biography. She's now admitted that she forgot that she did actually tell some people they could speak to the biographer.
Yeah, she says she inadvertently misled the court, so there's unlikely to be any perjury case or anything like that, because she says it was a mistake. But all along, she's maintained she's been defending her privacy. But this admission, and it's supported by emails and the testimony of her former press secretary, who discussed with her and actually had a briefing note, was going to speak to two people for a couple of hours who wrote a book. Very favourable to Meghan Markle and Harry Windsor, Finding Freedom. And also, when she was writing that letter to her father, she thought it might be leaked. So it was written in a way that would make her appear good if it was leaked, calling her father Daddy, because it would pull at heartstrings. Now, it's embarrassing for her in a legal case. It's embarrassing when she and her husband have been talking about the need to be totally accurate and avoid disinformation in the US. It's just another twist in an incredible soap opera of how that couple were going to be the new face and the future of the royal family, were incredibly popular, got an really a very gushing press in the UK. And then it all of a sudden turned sour as she was pushing up against the royals, allegations of treating staff badly. And then you get into this row where some people say she's all a victim of sexism, reaction and racism. And then you get other people saying, well, she was just a ruthless social climber on the make all the way. Well, in fact, she could be a victim of racism and snobbery, and at the same time also be a ruthless social climber and not particularly nice.
And very briefly, Andrew, it's not been a great year for the Queen, has it?
No, and she'll want this court case resolved as quickly as possible. But what's quite interesting about the press secretary to the Duchess of Sussex, who in fact had a 2-hour meeting with the authors of that book, and she'd forgotten about it, apparently, and she'd forgotten about the emails which he produced. He actually now works for William and Kate. He runs their charitable foundation. So that is going to be quite uncomfortable.
It is. Right, we've only got 45 seconds left. This Daily Star is leading with, we're now a
Take
nation of
four.
cocktail drinkers. 2 pints of mojito and a packet of crisps, please, it says. You'd be going some if you had 2 pints of mojito. What would be your favourite cocktail, Kevin?
I don't know. I'll have a mojito just because it's in that headline.
I thought you were going to say a lager top.
No,
Andrew?
does. He drinks them by the
We know
pint.
what Kevin would have. Kevin's would be a brown ale or a Mackerson. And my cocktail would be anything with gin in it.
I'd probably go mojito. It'd be a good party.